So we are working here on example 3. The function h equals negative 16t squared plus 48t gives the height of the tennis ball t seconds after it is hit. Ignoring the height of the tennis player, how long does it take for the ball to fall to the ground? So we went ahead and we substitute 0 in for h because when it hits the ground, the ball is going to have a height of 0. So now we've got 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 48t. We pulled out the GCF, which is a negative 16t. So next part here, what we're going to have to do is set each of those terms equal to 0. So let's do that. So I can take negative 16t, set equals 0. And then I can take the other term there, which is t minus 3, and set that equals 0. So now we're simply going to solve for x, or t in this case. So I got to get rid of the negative 16. It's attached to the t there by division, so I have to do the opposite, which is to multiply. Or I'm sorry, to divide. And so we get t equals 0. Over here, we have to get the t all by itself, so I got to get rid of minus 3. So I got to use the inverse operation, which is go ahead and add 3. So I end up getting t equals 3. So obviously, 0 is where it started at, so we're not going to count that one. We're going to say 3 seconds. And I'm picking seconds because I'm looking back up into the word problem there, and it says t seconds. And so we're going to label our answer there with seconds in it. This was supposed to be equals. All right. So what are the reasonable domain and range for the function? So the domain, that's your x values. So it starts there at t equals 0, or I guess our t and our h. So this is your t, and this is our h. So for our domain, it starts at 0, and then it lands on the ground there at 3 seconds. So it goes from 0 to 3. That's a reasonable domain. And then range, for our values here, the lowest height of the ball there is going to be 0. The highest height of the ball, because it makes a parabola there, the highest height of the ball there is going to occur up here at the vertex. So we're going to have to go ahead and find the vertex of that one. So let's do that. So to find the vertex there, we can go and we can say it was h equals negative 16 t squared plus 48 t. So if you remember in this problem here, how this goes, whatever's in front of the t squared there, that coefficient there is negative 16, so that's your a value. What's in front of t there, that's your b value. And our c value there is simply be 0. So we could put on plus 0 over here. So to find our vertex, we go ahead and we say x equals opposite of b all over 2a. So our b, b there is 48, so that's a negative 48 all over 2 times negative 16. So then I'm going to clean up my denominator down there. And so then we're going to just divide that out. So now I can take negative 48 there and divide it by negative 32. And I end up getting a 1.5. So t there ends up being 1.5. Right? So now we're going to plug it back in to the function. So it's going to be h equals negative 16 times 1.5 squared, and then plus 48 times 1.5. So h there equals, so I'm just plugging it right into my calculator. I'm going negative 16 parentheses 1.5 parentheses squared plus 48 times 1.5. And I'm getting 36. So this point up here is simply 1.5 and then 36. And then it hits the ground over here at 3, 0. And then it starts over here at 0, 0. All right, so the highest height that it can reach there is a 36. So my range there goes from 0 to 36. Remember how we talked about the bottom of the graph there is 0, and the top of the graph there is 36. And then for domain, we talk about left. What's the leftmost x value? It'd be 0. What's the rightmost x value? It'd be 3. So that's how we do those. So we have another function over here. The function c of x is equal to 3,550 plus 24x gives the cost in dollars for the production and sale of x televisions. The function r of x equals 190x minus 0.2x squared. It gives the revenue, so that's the amount of money you're bringing in. Also in dollars for selling televisions, x televisions. How many televisions should the company produce so that the cost and the revenue are equal? So we want the cost and the revenue there to be equal, so we're going to set those two functions equal to each other. We're going to say 3,550 plus 24x equals 190x minus 0.2x squared. So basically we're doing c has to equal r. So because it says when are they equal. So let's go ahead and let's bring everything over on one side. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring over 0.2x squared over on this side. I'm also going to bring over 190x. And so doing so on this side, I'm going to get 0.2x squared. Then I'm going to write my x terms here next. So I have to do negative 190 there plus 24. And I get a positive negative 166. So minus 166x. And then we still have that plus 3,550 equals 0. All right, so we could graph this out on our graphing calculator if we wanted to, which is probably what we're going to have to do here. If we could factor this, we could do that as well. We could also use our quadratic formula on this. The numbers are getting rather large here. So I'm going to probably just go ahead and use my quadratic formula on this one here. So let's just do that. So A here equals 0.2. B here equals negative 166. And C here equals 3,550. So let's plug that into the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula says opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. So maybe I'll write that up here for you. So opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Not just the square root part is over 2A, the whole thing is over 2A. So let's keep working with this one. And so what I do on my calculator now is I take the part that's underneath the square root there and I go ahead and I plug that into my calculator. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to take 166 squared minus 4 times A times C and I get 24,716. All over 2 times 0.2, that's going to give us 0.4. So now on my calculator I'm going to see what the square root of 24,716 there is. I'm not getting a very nice answer. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So I've got 166. I'm going to do plus the square root of 24,716. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to divide this by 0.4. And then I'm going to take 166 minus the square root of 24,716 and divide that by 0.4 and see what my two solutions there are. So 166 plus the square root, oops, 24,716 equals divided by 0.4 equals, and I get 808.033. Okay, let's find the other one as well. So 166 minus the square root 24,716 equals divided by 0.4, 21.967. So now, how many televisions should they produce? So they could produce 808.033 TVs, or they could produce, so usually we don't go ahead and we don't name them with decimals there, so you might want to go ahead and just round them. So about 808 TVs or 22 TVs. The function A equals 1.6t minus 0.1 t squared gives the amount A in micromilligrams of a drug in a patient's bloodstream t hours after being ingested in tablet form. What is the amount of the drug equal to, when is the amount of the drug equal to 6 milligrams? So it says here multiply the equation you write by 10 before solving. So let's just multiply the equation there by 10 before we actually solve that. But let's kind of think through this as well. So A gives the amount A in micromilligrams. So A is the amount in micromilligrams, that's mmg. So let's go ahead and let's put 6 in there for T there first, or for A, because that's what it says it is. And we are supposed to go ahead when That's T hours. So we're trying to find T. And the 6 is your A value. So it says to go ahead and multiply this whole equation through by 10 first. So let's do that. So doing so, 10 times 6 there is 60. 10 times 1.6t is 16t. And 10 times 0.1t squared there is this 1t squared or just t squared. So now I'm just going to bring everything over on one side. So since t here is negative, I'm going to make it positive, so I'm going to bring it over on the other side. So I get t squared, and then plus 60 equals 16t. Let's also go ahead and bring the 16t over. So we end up getting t squared minus 16t plus 60 equals 0. So if we can factor this, let's do that because that's pretty fast. What times what gives you t squared? It'd be a t. What multiplies to give you 60 and adds to give you a negative 16? Be a minus 10 and a minus 6. So then how do you get 0 and how do you get 0? If you can see them, write them down. If you can't, set them equals 0 and solve for t. So I can add 10 to both sides here. I can add 6 to both sides here. And so I just end up getting t equals 10. Over here I get t equals 6. So when is the amount of the drug equal to 6 milligrams? We're going to say after 6 hours and after 10 hours. Because both 6 and 10 there worked. So I can solve quadratic equations using factoring, I can solve quadratic equations using graphing, and I can solve real-world applications involving quadratic equations.